The 5 who watch, and the 5 who wait. Grandpa, why do you live way out here in the woods? I snapped back to reality, my daydream interrupted by my granddaughter. You've heard the story, honey. I didn't know what else to say. I add another log to the small fireplace in my windowless cabin. Even my family thinks I'm crazy. She had a look of disappointment on her face. Everyone thought you were dead. You can't just show up after abandoning us for so long and continue to isolate yourself way out here. You can come live with me and Greg, she said. There's plenty of room and he always loves to hear your stories. We can go make your dinners and enough, Annie. You know I won't leave these woods. She sighed. Tell me the story again, Grandpa, from the beginning. Don't spare any details. I'm not a little girl anymore. Where did you go when you left Grandma? She pulled her chair closer to my rocking chair and put her hand on my knee. I looked into her eyes, taking in the light brown innocence. She had a stern look on her face. She wasn't going to give up this time. I took a deep breath, staring at the dancing flames once again, and began my tale. When I was younger, I've been a successful businessman living in New York City, a much different environment than my current holdup in the woods of upstate New York. In my New York City, the glass is inescapable. The buildings are glass, the subway and taxicab windows are glass, the surface of computer and cell phone screens are glass. No matter where you go, it will follow you there. But I never really noticed. In New York City, the more glass you have, the more important you seem. Everyone wants more glass, more windows on the limo, more panels of glass lining the walls of their apartment, more champagne bottles. I was once an ignorant, money-hungry fool like them. Slowly, painfully slowly, I noticed the glass wasn't right. The first time I noticed it, I was riding the subway, heading home after work on a day I wanted to avoid the city traffic. At the moment the train was above ground, I remember thinking how beautiful the sunset looked over the city that day. I was staring out the window like I often did when the train into a tunnel. All outside light was immediately extinguished, and I found the sunset replaced by my own reflection in the window. I looked at it for a few seconds, checking my hair. My eyes wandered down. Oh wait, the sunlight flooded back into the train, my reflection disappeared. I only saw my face for a fraction of a second before it was gone. But I could have sworn my eyes were completely black, void of any iris color. Goosebumps ran down my arms, but I shrugged it off as an optical illusion caused by the dim subway lights, and I'd forgotten all about it by the time I got home. The following days were uneventful. It was until the next week when I noticed. I was in the office bathroom, trying to finish up quickly before my next meeting. It was a large bathroom, 6 stalls and a long line of urinals, but I was alone. I pumped soap into my hands and ran them under the warm water. I looked up into the large mirror that hung over the sinks. Nothing unexpected. I looked down and started scrubbing. I looked up again, and just before I had turned the water off and froze, my eyes were black again. I took 2 steps backward from the mirror in fright, but my reflection did not move. It was still standing in front of the sink, staring straight ahead. Creak. My head span around instantaneously. Someone opened the bathroom door. My eyes shot back into the mirror. It was normal. Are you alright? You seem like you've seen a ghost, the man joked. I was still staring at the mirror, my hands dripping water onto the floor. Everything seemed completely normal. I'm fine, thanks. I left for my meeting. This went on for a few months. Once or twice a week I could see myself in a mirror, a window, a screen. But I wasn't myself. Sometimes I was crying, sometimes I was covered in blood. Other times I was pointing straight ahead, directly at the real me. I always had black eyes. I talked to my doctor once or twice, and he said I was just too stressed at work and needed to relax. He wasn't much help. No one was. When the first of those guys showed up, I nearly had a heart attack. I had just gotten out of the shower and the bathroom was filled with steam. I wrapped a towel around my lower half and stepped out and looked at the mirror. I immediately regretted my decision to wipe the condensation from the mirror, as I was greeted by 2 familiar jet black eyes staring back at me. Only this time I wasn't alone. There was a woman behind me, standing in the shower. She wore rags and her body was very thin and frail. Her skin was wrinkled and it looked like she was having trouble even supporting her own weight. Her hair was pretty patchy, with multiple bald spots. as a light gray and shot out of her head in a same like random pattern. Her face, oh god. Her face was by far the worst part. Her jaw was hanging off the right side of her head, almost no longer attached to the left side. She had no nose, only a hole where there once was, and her eyes were the same jet black as mine. I span around faster than I thought was possible. There was no one in the bathroom with me. I looked back at the mirror. The woman was now standing right behind me, running her fingers through my hair. Her fingernails were long, yellow, and cracked. The me in the mirror began to move its mouth. No noise came out, but the words its mouth were easily identifiable. Please help me. I must have screamed, but I don't remember. My wife burst into the bathroom, asked what I was doing. I passed out and woke up in her arms a few minutes later. It started occurring more and more often. I would find myself walking down the city street and see the reflection walking alongside me in the shop windows, and it was not my own. Sometimes it was the fragile woman in the broken jaw, staring at me and gliding along at my pace. Sometimes with myself, or with the black eyes and the blood streaming from my eyes, begging and pleading for help. Or sometimes it was someone else. There were 5 of them in total. Not all of them were decrepit as the old woman. One was a young, attractive woman, other than her black eyes, of course, who couldn't be much older than myself. She was the one that I hated the most. Why was she so normal? They would haunt me at any time of the day, from any reflective surface they could find. I always hated when multiple showed up at once. They would touch and torment the other me, and I was helpless to assist my alternate self. They would laugh in his face and cut him with their nails and stand around him and point at him. All the while he kept repeating the words over and over again. Please help me. And making a motion as if he was tapping on the glass surface. This went on for another month before I lost control. After a long day at work, I got into my car, parked in a large cement parking structure. I saw them all in the windshield, myself and the 5 intruders. The scene played out like a movie I was watching on a theater screen. I was on my knees, arms tied behind my back. The woman in the bathroom was standing over me, slightly off to one side, and I can see my own face. She was holding a large knife above her head, struggling to hold the weight. The others were standing in a circle around me, laughing and kicking me. I was staring straight ahead, mouthing the same words over and over. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Just as the knife was about to be brought down across my neck, I lost it. I punched the woman holding the knife as hard as I could. In slow motion, I watched the windshield crack in 1,000 pieces and fall backwards out of my car as one sheet, as windshields do. Left behind was not the concrete wall of the parking garage that would bend over the other side. Instead, there was only darkness at the glass had been. I sat in my seat, completely stunned, staring into the ominous void. One by one, hands began to appear. First there were 2 feminine hands, and they were young, followed by 2 hairy ones belonging to an older man, and then 2 more that were wrinkled and fragile with long yellow cracked nails. In total, 10 hands reached out from the place the windshield was moments before. They grabbed my shirt, my arms, anywhere they could reach. I tried to struggle to get out of the car, but with impossible strength they pulled me into the darkness. I was lying on my back, looking up at 4 familiar figures. The young woman outstretched her arm. Instinctively, I grabbed it and pulled myself to my feet. I was not afraid anymore. The fragile woman was gone. I stood in the dark with my other 4 tormentors. I felt no emotion. Even terror had abandoned me here in this forsaken darkness. The 5 of us stood in a line, as if I were brainwashed. In front of us was a pane of glass, and in it a car I recognized as my own. The fragile woman was in my car, getting out of the vehicle with an awkward, broken-jawed smile on her face. She walked off the part of the frame we could see, and then the scene changed. Now we were looking at the child, no older than 9 or 10. She was in an airplane, clutching her doll in her arms, staring into the window. She was looking straight at me with a look of sheer terror on her face. Without any thought, I raised my arm and pointed at her.